170 million damage against the Ultra Nightmare clan boss with a budget team. I'll explain what I mean by a budget team in a little bit. So we're going to go over this clan boss team. It's been somewhat presented before with a few different champions in there, but it was since optimized and further tuned to reach this kind of damage output. So a huge shout out to Fisher here for letting me showcase this on his account. We're going to go over the champions first, and then we're going to do a run, and I'll explain what I know so far so that hopefully you guys can replicate something similar on your own account. All that said, let's go. Let me first start by explaining what I mean with a budget build. We're using more accessible champions. So the original build from this, I believe, is where it all started, was Pavo's, Krisk, and Lydia. You're using shields, you're extending them. This is not an infinity build, but you do need that Krisk, and I believe even a Valkyrie in this team right here. And although that's great, it's very hard for most players to reach this. So since it's been kind of optimized to work with more accessible champions, and I believe this is more down the lines of what most players might eventually get. So this was created with iAanG and further optimized here with Fisher. And so what we did is we built off of this team right here. All right, so it's not this exact team. This one can work, but if you want even more damage output from this team, you're going to have to use a different champion over Sandlash Survivor, which is Godseeker Oniri. So now let's check out their gear. Starting with our trusty Lydia, which is accessible assuming you've completed the faction wars, and he's rocking a toxic set. So this is a great way to add a little bit more damage if you're not already topped out on the amount of debuffs you can put on this boss. Okay, so if you are able to replicate this, great, but I would assume most players don't have a toxic set on Lydia the Death Siren. So unless you consistently use her against the clan boss, this might not exactly be a must for you, right? You're not going to reach record runs, but at least you'll still be doing well above that one key Ultra Nightmare, so you can kind of like try to work with something similar. All right, so defense relatively high, the speed really important, crit rate, crit damage more would be better, I guess, but debuff accuracy is just the right amount. All the skills are done on this champion. And then for the masteries, we have a pretty typical War Master into counter attack, which is great, especially that we don't have Valkyrie, for example, to actually counterattack. But even with a Valkyrie, I would assume having those counterattack masteries are going to be really good. Next one, let's do our Brogni here, which is really important to grow the shields. We're going for overall stats, right? We do have 2 pieces of speed and then 2 pieces of, what's this called again? This is called the Fatal set. Okay. And then for total stats, 254, we have 100% crit rate, 270% crit damage, and 3.1k attack. So again, you want him to hit as hard as possible so you can grow the shields as much as possible. All the skills are also done on this guy. We do use the full kit, right? The block debuffs here is great. We also place a shield buff for 2 turns. And then for the masteries, we have a typical Giant Slayer into counter attack yet again. Up next, we're going to do our Iron Brago, another fusion champion. So those are the 3 accessible champions, legendaries used to get to this. All right, so Lydia, Brogni, and finally Iron Brago. We have perception pieces and then overall stats. All right, so 5.7k defense, 218 speed, good amount of crit rate, crit damage. He does hit pretty hard, so you do want to boost up his stats as much as you can. And we have 244 accuracy. For the skills, they are also all done, right? We also have decreased attack from this guy, which is huge, but we also have it from one of the other champions. And for his masteries, we have War Master into counter attack again. Then let's move on to Godseeker Oniri. So I think this is the big difference over the other build that I just showed with iAanG over Sandlash Survivor. The heals that is provided by Godseeker will allow this to last a lot longer. Even better if you can work with a Guardian set. Apparently, if you can get a good Guardian set, with the right amount of speed and something like 42,000 HP, give or take, that seems to be the sweet spot according to Fisher, you're going to get even more damage out of this. It's actually what you need to do if you want to reach the 170 million record run that he got. All right, so we got 4.1k defense, then a lot of crit rate, crit damage, accuracy, resistance. We don't care about that all that much. So we do want her for multiple reasons because we're extending the buff, so this is really important. The revive, I suppose, can come in handy, but obviously it's not used throughout most of the fight. And then we also have the heal on the A1. We have War Master for the tier 6, and then we have more counter attack stuff. And finally, let's finish with, I believe, Taragi is also a must, right? I don't think there's any other champions that can replace this guy because of the ally protection and his shield, his poisons, and the decreased attack. So really amazing champion. Huge value surge on this champion if you ask me. He's rocking a stalwart set, total stats 228 speed, we have 78k HP, and then the right amount of accuracy to land those poison debuffs. All right, skills, they are all done. Yes, does look like it. And then for the masteries, we have War Master into, of course, Sniper and Master Hexer. So now let's go check out the skill order, the AI preset, and finally a run. The only skill we're not using here is the A2 from Taragi the Frog, and then everything else is pretty much untouched, right? So really straightforward overall. However, you do have to set this up on manual in the beginning. I don't know if this can be optimized to work on auto, but Fisher gave me this, and I kind of just replicated to show you guys. So we will have a link in the description below for the calculator. All right, so if you guys want to check this out, but basically I do a few skills with each of these champions, and then by this yellow dot right there, I'm able to put this on auto, and then we are good to go. So once you're finished setting up, then you put this on auto and you let it go. Everything is going to then fall into place. And at this point, we're going to watch this for about 45 minutes on the computer, right? So I actually have the FPS unlocked on this specific run, which is why I'm able to do it maybe a little bit faster on my PC. But we're literally reaching turn count above 100. And this can apparently last to turn count 120 if everything lines up, and I think with the Guardian set on Godseeker near, right? But do keep in mind that this is against the Spirit Affinity, okay? Against the other affinities, you're not going to deal as much damage. It might work for one key for all the other ones. Fisher does seem to think that it could, but he has not tested it because this is not his main team. Believe it or not, he has better. He has the Krisk, right? So he's going to use that champion over some of these guys right here. But it's still very impressive to see this in action, and I've been trying to find a clever name for this, not taken away from Pavo's or iAanG here, but much like the Infinity builds, where we give it a clever name because of what's happening, where we grow the shields forever with the Infinity and they stay on forever. This is not the case, right? You don't have 3 extenders. You're using shields, but they keep falling off, or you keep resetting them. Instead, I would probably call this something like a shield battery. This is the only thing I can think of right now because the shield keeps going up and down, but you are using the shield and it is a must as a buffer for damage, right? So of course it's all about the shield here. And you do have to grow it, and you do have to extend it in some sense, right? So I don't know what exactly we should call this. Maybe we don't need a different name for it, but I was trying to figure out here with Fisher, like, how do I properly name this so that you guys understand what we're referring to? So right now, it's the 170 million damage budget team, I guess, because I don't know of any other team that uses mostly accessible champions, in a sense, with 2 epic champions to reach these kinds of numbers. Okay, so then that's it literally for the entire fight here. This is going to go on forever, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit to the end because it's going to get kind of boring. I want to show you guys the end, right? What ends up happening when we start taking too much damage like here, and then we're having a hard time trying to like heal through this, right? But by turn count 70, we're at about 100 million damage, all right? Going on about 20 minutes. So let's keep going here a little bit towards the end. And I believe we're losing, or we're going to lose a champion around turn count, give or take 100, right? So here as well, you can kind of see we're starting to lose some HP. You do kind of heal, right? You're going to heal through this. You're going to recast the same big shields. You're going to be able to mitigate some damage, but at some point, you're going to be down by a little bit too much, and then the boss is going to get some kind of crit hit, and it's going to wipe one of your champions, right? Which is exactly the case, and the first one to go down is Arn Brago. And then if one goes down, well, the entire thing is going to fall apart, right? So, but it's still absolutely amazing because we're just about at turn count 100 and we've passed the 140 million mark. According to Fisher, you should be in the range of 150 million damage on the Spirit Affinity. All right, and if you're really lucky, everything kind of like lines up and you don't get a crit, then you might go all the way up to 120. So there's a big range right there, right? But for a non-counter attack team, this is pretty darn amazing. So you can imagine that with the Krisk and the Valkyrie, this is why you can reach above 200 million damage, right? But again, those champions are very hard to obtain, whereas here working with fusion champions and a guaranteed, which is Lydia, requires a lot of work, but she's at least guaranteed. I think this is amazing. I think this is absolutely amazing. I would totally try to replicate this on my account if I had Taragi the Frog. So I'm literally 1 epic champion short of being able to do this, and I want to know, are you guys going to do something similar? Do you have the champions for this? I think it would be absolutely amazing. Do you think it's overkill, right? At this point, we're seeing all these crazy teams, but like, is there a use for these kinds of teams? I keep believing that if you finish top 3 in the clan boss every day, you get slightly better drops. I did show some data for this, so I'm going to say I would totally do this, right? Even just doing this one key and then not having to do any other keys on Ultra Nightmare would be fantastic. So there you have it, the budget 170 million damage team. Of course, I didn't get that run, he got it himself, so here's the proof of that. So 171.46 million damage with this exact team on Fisher's account. So you can kind of see when, again, when the RNG lines up and the Guardian set here on Godseeker Aniri. All right, so huge shout out to Fisher for letting me showcase this off of his account, and props to him for being able to further tune this. And again, another shout out to Pavos and iAanG, all the guys that were implicated in figuring this out. So again, hopefully you guys are able to do this. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.